Do you still have your yearbooks?
I do. I think I have all of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because senior year, everyone did his superlatives, and I ended up getting best sense of humor.
Hello.
And still to this day, people are like, "Did you do that yourself because you were on Yearbook?" And I'm like, "I'm funny sometimes."
Catherine?
Oh, yeah. You know what time it is. It's time to get a little Fronky up in here. This is Let Me Be Fronk.
It's time to get funky. We're all getting funky. It's time for a Lisa Fronk. A Lisa Fronk.
Let me be Fronk.
Hello, and welcome back to Let Me Be Fronk, a bi-weekly talk show I host in my New York City apartment that features some of the most interesting, cool, kind, creative people I know. They're friends, neighbors, family members, past coworkers, past lovers, just kidding, etc. This show is all about seeing the world through other people's lenses, expanding empathy, and keeping it very real, very Fronk. Before I dive into what is sure to be a brilliant conversation with a dear friend, I have some things to share. We are in the final stretch of Let Me Be Fronk Season 1. Yes, if you can believe. The show will wrap in December, but do not fret. There will be a Season 2 in the new year. I have big plans and dreams and goals for what I want Season 2 to be like. So to get there, I'm going to take a break to recharge my batteries, work on relaunching the show in the new year, and announce the premiere date as soon as I have one. Just a heads up, it won't be in January. That month is all mine, obviously, because I am an Aquarius, okay? But please stay tuned. I won't be radio silent over the break, and I have a few fun things in the works to share in the meantime. Okay, more on that later. My next guest is another gem of a friend who crossed state lines to be here with us today. Thank you, friend. We're so lucky. Thank you for making the time, the effort, and supporting me. I really appreciate it. She's an original UK girly who grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, bopped around throughout her life, and ultimately landed back in the old hometown to open her retail store, Modern Legend, in downtown Wilmington. And let me brag on my girl's store for just a minute, if I may, okay? Modern Legend was a concept decades in the making, looping back to that story later on in the episode. She built her dream record and retail store from the ground up 8 years ago. She's expanded her business, grown a team, caught the attention of Wilmington's business and entrepreneur scene, and constantly finds meaningful ways to champion community through her store. If you're in the Wilmington area and don't drop by, huge mistake. And as if running a business wasn't impressive enough, she also juggles a whole other career in the music industry. This makes perfect sense given her entire life has always been enmeshed in the artistry and production of music, which I can't wait to dive into. She's also a proud auntie, cat mommy, Pilates born on the October 3rd, and hates blue cheese.
True.
If you know Kat, you love her. She's the type of person everyone wants to talk to. She's a trove of stories, wisdom, and music racks. As someone who has known her for a long time, I can confidently say she is effortlessly cool, kind, and creative. Please welcome to Let Me Be Fronk, all the way from Wilmington, North Carolina, Catherine Hawksworth.
Everyone's cheering.
Yeah,
Do you hear that?
like-
The whole city, actually. I know, me too. Yeah, for sure.
Welcome to Let Me Be Fronk.
I'm so happy to be here.
And welcome to New York.
Thank you.
Not that this is
T-Swift,
your
what's
first
up?
time here. Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to New York.
It is the first time you visited me, though.
It is the first time I visited you.
What is bound to be the first of many more visits to
Yes,
come.
100%.
I'm speaking into existence. But yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for traveling
Of
on
course.
up, hopping
Earlier
on
when you said I traveled state lines, it sounded like I was like a drug mule. You're like, she's crossing state lines to be here. I was like, it's true. I would do that for you.
Thank
theory.
you. Thank
You're so
you.
welcome. First thing I'm saying on a podcast.
Not everyone would do that.
I would
That's a real friend. That's a
commit
real
crime
friend.
for you.
No, I'm so glad you're here. She did not bring me drugs. Relax, Mom.
Yeah, everyone. Oh my God.
How the hell is Catherine Hawksworth these days?
She's great, you know.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I've been checking in with her a lot lately. She's good. Yeah, things are great, you know. It's such a wild time to kind of be doing what I'm doing in so many ways, especially being where I am because Wilmington's growing at such a rapid rate.
Yeah.
And I've seen so much change over the last 8 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, the world's changed drastically in the last several years. That town specifically has taken off in a way that I never could have predicted. So business Catherine's great. Normal life Catherine is great as well. it sounds psychotic. Like all the different
Yeah,
personalities I
it's
have
okay.
are thriving.
They're keeping up. It's
yeah,
fine.
they're keeping up. Yeah, they're getting
I
along.
don't
so,
bring boring people on. You already know this, okay?
It's true. I'm like, here's my 17 versions of myself.
And just a heads up, this is my first hometown friend to come visit the show. So we will be talking about Wilmington, North
Yeah.
Carolina a lot
Oh my
today.
God, we have
If
to.
you're not interested, too bad. Expand your mind. Open your heart
Yeah.
and learn about where I come from.
Yeah.
And the great people that live
Yeah.
there. But I think people would be
I
interested.
think they'll be
but I'm
interested
not
too.
really
Yeah,
worried.
what are you
I'm being
kidding?
silly.
It's me and you. Come
yeah,
on.
no, we're
Silly.
cool. We're cool.
We're cool.
Girls.
We're cool girls.
Very cool.
Yeah, we're cool. In 3rd grade, I was told to go to the wrong lunch table in the cafeteria because people made fun of me, but then it became cool later in life.
Myrtle Grove Christian?
No,
Oh.
in high school. Did I say middle? Oh, I said 3rd grade.
You said third
that's
grade.
That's when a hamster died. I have to tell another story. We can cut this because
Wait.
I'll tell you another story.
Wait, in high school, people were mean to you?
Okay, people were mean to me the first 2 years of high school. That's why I transferred to Hoggard. Do you remember when I transferred high schools?
No.
Okay. This is a whole
Wait,
other-
you transferred from Ashley to
I
Hoggard?
was in Ashley. Okay. Yes. So being at Myrtle Grove Christian was difficult and a little traumatizing. And so transferring to a public school, because I stayed through 8th grade. So then going to a public school was like a very, like, I didn't know how to talk to people, like, which is funny because I loved talking to people my whole life. And so I had a really hard time making friends my first year. Like,
At Ashley.
because it was like literally like when I left Myrtle Grove, it was like the way to meet people when you go out to the real world, to public school, is be like, what church do you go to? And that was like the transitional statement to
You
try
said
to
that,
like
yeah.
meet people that'd be in your circle.
Yeah.
So like that was like a weird off-putting thing to do to people who weren't raised in, you know what I mean? So I transferred. I literally transferred to Hoggard the top of sophomore year.
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
and I
but then you
stayed-
came back.
I only stayed for 1 semester. And then I came back to Ashley.
How was that experience for you at Hoggard?
It was very different, and I had made a bunch of friends who had previously been really involved in youth group and then left. That's kind of like when I started figuring out my own relationship with religion, and so then in turn I was able to go back to Ashley and finish out high school like feeling much more independent in my own personality, I guess. You know what I mean? So I really thrived, and that's when I found like Yearbook and like the whole art scene, and dated a drummer and like the whole thing.
Hot.
Very hot. Yeah, very hot when you're in high school. He was like a bad
Yeah.
boy. He was like smoking
No.
cigarettes
No,
outside
you
of the
were-
300 hallway. I was like, okay.
My perception of you in high school, because I believe I was 2 grades younger than you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're 2 years apart. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I was always like, she's cool and everyone likes her. And
Yeah, no,
she
first
wears
year was
cute
a
clothes
doozy.
and she knows music. Okay, so here's the interesting thing about Catherine and myself. Our lives have done this like a lot.
That's so true.
Is it not?
Actually, yeah.
yeah, because we've never been in the same grade, but
but our lives have had this weird like interloping pattern for a long time.
because we both went to the same private school, Myrtle Grove Christian School. Shout out. And
Okay.
so
I'd rather not shout out.
I do have at least 2 friends that do listen to the show. So
Hopefully you
shout out.
guys turn
know
out
who you're-
okay and not weird.
Yeah,
We'll
they're
see.
great. They're great. Our school was so small as a private school that you and your brother went there, and you also have a cool last name, Hawksworth. The kid's gonna remember that.
That's true.
So like I
And
was
we were like English and
Joe
like yeah.
and Kat Hawksworth, and I remember like Bree was your best
Oh,
friend.
so Bree is still in my life, and
I love that.
Bree's dad and my dad are best friends, and we all. She's back. She
No.
used to live in New York, and now she's back in Wilmington, and we literally like go and watch like football matches at the pub together.
That
My
makes
girl's
me
a riot.
so happy to
I
hear. No,
love
you
her.
guys were like the dynamic.
But we definitely split up for
besties in middle
15 or
school.
so years.
Yeah.
Like, it took a long time for us to kind of, but we kept in touch. But yeah, in middle, yeah, we were so close in middle school, and we got really, really into Charmed, like the TV show Charmed. Like I never got into Harry
God rest
Potter
her
and stuff
soul,
like that.
Shannon.
But no, R.I.P. Shannon for
like
real.
literally.
Prue,
Can
the
you
best.
believe that's a sentence? Like she's
Stop. Because they killed her off in the show, and even that was devastating enough. Sorry, spoiler alert. But then in real life, I was like, so Prue's really not coming back? Anyways, Bree and I got in trouble at Myrtle Grove. We got sent home actually for bringing Charmed books to school. And like we were like in trouble. They were like, you're going to be suspended if you keep bringing this like witchcraft into our school. And I was like, damn, y'all are boring as hell.
no, literally.
let me
that's
believe
why
I
I
have
had
powers.
That's why I had such a like beef with Harry Potter. I never engaged with any of the literature or film.
Yeah, because you like weren't seeing it was
until my
like
adulthood.
That's bad.
No,
I'm
like I was like, oh my god, witchcraft.
boring.
Plot twist. I'm obsessed with
Yeah,
witchcraft.
me too.
Now, 'cause
I'm 32 years
I'm
old, still wanna be a
witches
witch.
Are my mothers.
Yeah,
I
that's
trust them with my whole life,
1000%.
honestly. And they do a lot of good in the world, which I said last episode.
But it's true. No, it's like so true.
do you want to hear about something? Okay, so we're getting off on tangents, but stay with us. I went to Myrtle Grove Christian from 3rd to 8th grade. What were your years?
So we moved from England.
Okay. Time
Yeah.
out. Let's take it from the top.
From the top.
So as I mentioned in the intro, you are originally a UK girly. So I
Yes.
want to hear about the Great Migration to North Carolina because I've actually never
We've
heard
never
the
talked
story.
about this, actually.
No.
It's really not that eventful.
I've saved some. Okay. You let me be the judge of that.
Okay,
But
okay.
I've saved some nuggets specifically for this episode. So
Okay,
I
exciting.
want to know the Hawksworth family genesis.
I will tell you.
So take it up from like your parents' meeting, like we were talking about
Okay,
earlier.
so my mom is a Southern gal from Columbia, South Carolina. Shout out Robin Hawksworth.
Do you think your parents will
Love
watch
her.
this?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh
okay,
yeah.
I need to
Literally,
be-
I got text today. They're like, "Good luck, sweetie." I'm like, I'm 32 years old, but I love it. They're still my.
I need to
fucking
connect
best
with your
friends.
family IRL. Okay.
Wonderful humans. Honest to God, favorite people in the world.
I'm
Anyways,
dying.
my mom was born and raised Columbia, South Carolina. She was
Okay.
like, I am getting out of here. I am going to LA and I'm gonna work in the music industry.
Damn.
And I'm like, she was like her father's daughter through and through. Like she is just like didn't care about the traditions of, my mom's, she's now about to be 70 years old. Like it was a time where it was like, that wasn't really as common, And she was very much like, I want to just go on my own. I don't really care about the trajectory that everyone else has lined out for them at this point in their life.
Because when was that? The 60s?
Yeah, it would've been, right?
LA?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So she moved out to Los Angeles when she was 18, and she lived in a house with like 3 girls for several years, and like started from the bottom working in recording studios, and ended up working for what's now closed, but was called Wally Hyder back then. It was
Wow.
a really well-known recording studio at the time. People like Tom Petty
Sick.
went through and things
Heard
like
of
that.
him?
Ever heard of him? R.I.P. So she had a mutual friend
Uh-huh.
who knew a bunch of people in the music world in England. And my mom decided that she wanted to go over, and she'd never gone over to London. She wanted to spend some time over there. So this mutual friend knew my dad, and my dad worked for a company. He owned a company called Trinifol Travel.
Rich?
He started a company. Let's say definitely doesn't.
Proud
no,
of you.
Definitely not. Yes. But my dad comes from truly nothing London boy, like rough around the edges, whole 9 yards. So whole nother long story, but ultimately ended up working his way up to certain things, worked for a travel agency for a long time that booked like cruises and things like that for family vacations. And through that met people and ultimately ended up starting to do it in the music industry is the short version of a very long story. So he was doing his own thing over in London.
Mm-hmm.
And so when my mom went over, their mutual friend had made a plan for them to connect. And my dad just had like on an itinerary for the day, like his assistant, but like, don't forget, like Diane's friend Robin is coming, like make sure you say hi, she's going to come by at some point today. And in England, Robin is traditionally a man's name more than a woman's name.
Okay.
And so my dad saw it on this like list of things to happen for the day, and it ended up being my mom walked in, and he still tells the story. He's like, still to this day, I remember like what she was wearing, he just was like, who is this woman? You know what I mean? And my mom never left. So she never left England.
He was enchanted by her.
So that's basically, she ended up coming back for like a little bit of time to just, wrap things up in LA and stuff. But she basically ended up starting a life over there.
So they got married over
So
there.
they got married actually in Wilmington. They got married in downtown Wilmington.
Cute.
But their life was,
She goes over there. She goes
over there. They fall in love. They get married.
and then they start having kids.
They had my brother and I.
Okay.
And we end up moving out of like central London and moved to Purley, which is like southeast London area, like kind of Croydon, like just 30 minutes-ish outside of London, 30, 40 minutes. And so we lived there. And it was right around the time I was starting kindergarten. So I was like 4.5 years old. Basically, they were like, we want to, be able to have a good life for our kids. And my dad's whole family had passed, and my mom still had her sister in America and her parents over here. And my dad sold the company that he had started.
Wow.
And was going to retire. The plan was that he was going to retire and just be a full-time like parent at home
I love that.
with all of us. And then we came over to the States, and we picked Wilmington because my mom's sister was going to UNCW.
Okay.
And so that's what landed us in Wilmington, which at the time was like nothing. I mean, I literally, my dad
That's
stepped
what I
foot and
was
was like, are you
thinking.
fucking kidding me? I'm leaving London and this is where I'm moving. At the time, it was like such a like shock and a huge culture shock for someone who grew up like
I can't
gambling
imagine.
on dogs and horses and like getting in street fights. You know what I mean? Like and then working his way up to like being in the middle of the most beautiful parts of London. Like to him, he was like, what the fuck is this?
No, seriously.
And so, but they still to this day live in the same house that they built
Wild.
back then, which is just a beautiful like brick traditional American home. And now they now they love it so much, and it couldn't imagine being anywhere else. But at the time, I think it was a huge shock. But I think their mentality was like wanting to be able to raise kids around family.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, my dad ended up just starting his own business again, but in America where he could just work from home, and it stayed a family business. So him and my mom just did it together as a travel agency
Oh, wow.
called the tour company. that's just
Oh,
them
cool.
that they still to this day do. And my
It's
dad is
still in
78 years
business.
old and it's still in business.
Okay, shout out
He does
freaking
not,
legends.
Mike Hawksworth has no idea when to stop working. I love him for it.
I did not know his first name. I was
Yes,
just like
Michael
Mr.
Hawksworth.
Mr. Hawksworth.
Which also makes so much sense as to like why I am like knowing that. I feel like knowing that backstory. You're
It
like
sounds
that
like you come from a
tracks
family of workaholics.
of like workaholics
Yeah.
and like businesses, self-starters. Honestly,
Wait, what does their travel agency specialize in?
they basically do all the booking of plane flights and hotel rooms and logistics for music tours. So they've worked in the music industry this whole time.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's always been with the music industry. Sorry, that's like a crucial part I left out, I guess.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and they love it. It's obviously like a highly demanding. You have to be available all the time. So I definitely think they're starting to get to a point where it's such a demanding industry and it's hard enough to do when you're young and healthy and don't have the responsibility of like kids in the home and grandkids and stuff. And now it's just like I think it's just a really difficult thing to manage. I think it's great that they can work from home. You know, when they lived in England, it was for a company that was they had 60 employees at all times. They were in central London. You know, it was a whole different setup.
Wow.
So yeah.
It sounds
So
like
that's how
they've
we
done
ended up
really
here.
well for themselves.
Yeah.
Shout out.
I know.
Wow,
They've done
that's
well.
awesome.
And they've been really good about being in such a demanding industry and being business owners themselves and still being really involved parents. It's really hard to do all those things.
I was thinking
like
that
like
instantly
almost impossible.
because I'm like, for as much as you're telling me they've worked, as long as I've known you, I've always known your parents to be super
involved. They've
yeah.
always been, which I think was also a huge incentive to move to America because the reality is the like rat race and the hustle of being in London proper in the music industry, and this was now in the 90s. Like it was such a like exciting time, but also just you could. It was like you're being split between two worlds. You know what I mean? It was like really hard. I feel like to do the home life thing and then also that on that caliber. And so I think being able, my parents, I think especially my dad, found a really good in between being able to kind of settle down more in Wilmington, but also still, I'm realizing now as I'm saying it, it's exactly what I did with my business, like settling down in Wilmington and being able to utilize all the things that they had from being in these bigger places or moving around and stuff and
Yeah.
starting it for themselves on a scale that made sense for their lifestyle.
Isn't that the goal?
Yeah.
Like figure out what
I
works best for
guess.
you and your
And
family.
then, like, make it work.
also is like something you're genuinely interested in. You make a good living. You're proud of your work.
Yeah.
Sounds like they freaking nailed it.
I think growing up with that kind of mentality of like, you know, you work hard for the things you want, you know, for sure. Like my mom, they came from nothing in different ways. You know what I mean? Like London poverty and then like super South Carolina, you know,
Yeah.
dad works, you know, an hour away to just get
Right.
by and drives home late every night to make sure he's in time for a
Yeah.
bedtime type deal. But I think they both always had this really great work ethic.
Obviously.
And then they were able to apply it in a way that was like practical for the life they wanted without ever being like, you know, they never wanted to be some big, they were always on the sidelines. They were
Yeah.
always walking around in like t-shirt and jeans and driving minivans. It was never like they wanted this luxurious.
Right.
And I think that really was like special to see growing up because it was
Yeah.
like, oh, like success looks different to everyone. Tangible if you have reasonable expectations for what it looks like for you and the life you
Mhm.
want, you know?
1000%.
So
Wow, good for them.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've learned from them.
so much
Clearly.
all the time. We
Yeah.
teach you. I said this to you earlier. We teach each other things every single day. I teach them things about running a business at this point in the world and just in life and at the age I am. And I obviously have learned so much from them over time. So it's been a really special journey in friendship more than anything of just being able to like
What a
support
gift.
each other in these like endeavors that we have throughout our lives. And like, yeah, as like a daughter and mom and dad and brother, my brother as well. But it's more so like as like truly good friends, which I don't think anyone, I think very rarely people say that. And especially at
Yeah.
this point in their lives, to be in my early 30s and still be able to have that dynamic without it feeling like almost like a dangerous codependency situation is a really special thing too, because
1000%.
the boundaries are in place and it's a really great dynamic without it being like I feel like I don't have my own freedom or they don't have their own,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like we
No.
figured out a good.
You've never struck me as someone who's highly dependent on their parents or like
Yeah,
super enmeshed in
no.
like, you know, my life revolves around my family, but like family is very important to you and it's a high value
but it's like
to
truly
you.
enjoyable.
But it's because you all
know?
really like each other.
Yeah, it's like less of like I need
Groundbreaking.
you, which is like what you always hear, right? Like the best types of love are the kind where you're not like I need you, but I like want you around. It's the same applies to friendships and family. It's like, you know, it's a different kind of love, obviously, because it's by blood, but it's also you also choose it. You know, like not everyone has
Yeah.
those dynamics.
No,
and
you
so
really
it's like
can't choose your blood
I
family.
still like the other day someone was like living or dead. if you could have a drink with anybody, who would it be? And I was like, my dad. I was like, I would just go to the pub with my dad
I'm
and
gonna
shoot the shit for 3
sob. I'm
hours.
gonna
You know what I
sob.
mean?
I'm
But it's
gonna-
true.
the
It's
daddy
just like-
issues.
You're like, wow, thanks, triggered.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, if I could have a drink with anyone living or
Yeah,
dead, it'd be my
yeah,
dad.
thanks,
yeah,
Catherine.
Yeah,
Thanks
no,
for
no,
fucking-
no. I'm really genuinely happy you have that. I love seeing healthy, close family dynamics.
too.
Because it's like
Me
it is
too.
possible, and that's amazing, and it shows up in the type of person you are and your character.
I agree with that for sure.
I think it's something that has made you an exceptional human, is because like
Thank
you're
you.
just you're healthy, you're well adjusted, like you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like not a perfect person who is, but
No, but they also
you
were,
have like a good base and,
and
a
I
good
think
foundation.
a lot of that comes from, if I'm being honest, they were so good at like incorporating my brother and I in their lives. Everything they did,
Mhm.
they included us. Like if there were tours they had to go work on, they went and saw a show, we were there. If they went to the pub to watch a football game, we were there. Like I've been going to pubs since I was 4 years old. I like literally I used to go my brother and
She's
I
British.
used to pull the like the beer barrels, like whatever they're like out the kegs out in the back of the Dubliner, which doesn't exist anymore in Wilmington, but when we first moved there, and we would make goals out of them so we could kick the soccer ball in the back while like
Amazing.
everyone was drinking inside. And that was just like
Childhood.
but we were like, that was our childhood. We were so in everything that they did. And it in turn made us not really rebel that much in our like teen years because we always felt like there was that open line of communication.
Yeah.
And it was always like a foundation of friendship, which I think has lasted all through our adult years, which I think is crucial for just my development as a person. You know, I think the weirdest time in our dynamic was definitely Myrtle Grove because it didn't make sense to me because my parents aren't very religious. So I was really confused at how that ended up happening. And then later in life, it's ended up being that it was more so just like the move to Wilmington was such a massive transition and they wanted to put us in a school that they felt was like a good way to start a life in America. And that was kind of one of the only options at the time.
Okay.
And then Joe and I actually got kind of a little too sucked in and they were the ones that were like, it's time to be done now. It's time to go to public school. This isn't healthy.
Got it.
So like they were also really good. And then we've talked about it so much in later years of all of us kind of being like, that was weird, right? Like, you know, now we
Yeah.
all kind of laugh about it.
Even where my family was coming from, my grandmother paid for me and my sister's education
Yeah.
most of our life, my deceased dad's mother. And she was really big on like, I want the girls to have an amazing education.
Yeah.
I want to take that off my mom's plate so she didn't have to worry about it. And she was just like, we need to put them in a private school because it's like higher tier education.
Yeah.
It's more one-on-one instruction. I really believe that was the angle.
That was similar on our end, and in England, that's very traditionally how the
Right.
schools are
Like
there
a prep
anyways.
school or something,
Like
but-
like
but
it's very
Wilmington
like
doesn't have-
engaging. It's very one-on-one. That's just kind of the culture of school in England.
Yeah.
And Wilmington didn't really have that outside of a Christian option, which is sort of how that happened.
Some parents just really wanted just like a good quality education and not to just be left to chance in the public school system. And that's
Especially
not
when
to-
you're not familiar with it, and honestly, especially when it's North Carolina. Like I understand,
we
it's always
don't-
been such
we're
a difficult,
we're not leading education
right?
numbers in
Which
this
fucking
country.
sucks. It sucks because
a
there's
missed
like
opportunity.
Exactly. There's so much opportunity for it, and I literally to this day, I still have relationships with my high school teachers. Like Raspet comes in my shop, we go get brunch. Like those people formed
Oh,
me as a person,
I
and so I'm like, there's so
love-
much good
love
there.
my teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never thought of North Carolina as a dumb state at all.
No, me neither. But they don't value their teachers, and that's upsetting.
No.
you know.
I mean, that's also like a nationwide issue
Right,
at this
right.
point. But yeah, I mean, some of the most influential adults in my life have been teachers, and I would say specifically teachers from Ashley High School.
Me too.
So,
too.
okay, wait, I want to back up real quick. Do you remember living in the UK no, you were too little?
A little, but not
Do you remember
much.
the move?
Yeah, I remember there being a big move. My biggest memories of being in England are mainly with my dad, actually.
Aw.
And we had a lot of like little traditions. Like I'd help him carry in like wood to make a fire inside and like little wholesome shit like that.
Cute.
It's all, early developmental type stuff. I always joke, I'm always like, imagine if I still had my accent. Okay. First of all, my hotness level, so high.
You
Are
would
you kidding?
be untouchable.
I would be, yeah.
Untouchable.
I'm like, are you kidding me? I could be a business owner with like reddish hair, 5'10", and an accent? Okay. And you just take that from me?
You know what I was
It's
thinking
ridiculous.
of? I was trying to deduce in my head. I'm like, how much of Kat is British and how much is American? Because I was like, is this what a British person would be like with an American accent? Is that basically you? Or
Kind of.
you-
I definitely still abide by a lot of the culture. Like I
Right.
very much I religiously follow Premier League. Religiously. It's Like, what? You would never look at me and be like, she loves sports, especially football.
I
Like, you would never be like, she's a
honestly,
Manchester United fan.
I wasn't aware
Yes.
till a few years ago, and I saw you posting stuff on social. I was like, oh, she goes to the
Yeah, I
pubs
mean,
with her
it's
family.
like
That,
weird.
that's a
It's
thing.
like,
Okay.
and I've grown up in it, to be fair. But like, I love the community aspect of like pub
It's great.
life, and
Yeah.
I think it's like such a healthy. American culture with bars is a little bit different, and
Yeah.
with that, it's like you would go to the pub every day and you saw your people, and it was never about getting drunk. It was about like the community, and
Yeah.
it was just a very special neighborhood feel.
Totally.
I love tea. I love any English food or candy or anything like
Wow.
that. Forever, always. Our general way we live as a family is definitely more English. We have tea together every day or when we see each other and like things like that. So it's like, but I obviously have lived in America for longer and abide by a lot of
You're an American girl
ways.
too. Like
I'm
you
both.
love nice coffee.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. But when I was a kid, when we
You
first
love
moved
the
over,
OC.
I-
You're such an
I could-
American.
we have to have a whole 30-minute segment about the OC later. I tell people all the time, I'm like, the reason why I have a good taste in music is the OC. I swear to God.
Okay.
Indie platform for the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Are you joking? Like, the Killers were on that show. Modest Mouse, The Walkmen.
I mean, no, they did a
like,
good job.
Death Cab.
I think
huge
early
part of that show.
2000s dramas did a pretty good job
Great,
sourcing their music.
great.
Like even like Smallville.
Yeah.
Like they had good.
Also,
Smallville sucked, but like I
no, but
loved it. I
Smallville
loved it
was
so
like the
much.
first time they had like sexual feelings.
Tom Wellington is
so hot in that show. I was like, oh, so that's yeah.
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 It's a little hot now.
Woo! Is it hot?
Yeah, it is. Suddenly I'm like so sweaty. He is.
And have you seen him recently? Like he's like Silver Fox vibes.
No, but I
and
bet
I'm like,
he is. Also, so
Unreal.
is like Pacey from Dawson's Creek, Josiah Johnson, Silver Fox. right now.
Really?
Oh, smoking.
Okay.
10 out of 10.
Googling.
Yeah, you're like, hold on, I'll be right
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. So Kat and I met
When did
from
we?
afar.
When did we meet?
I don't, because the thing is, I don't think we talked in Myrtle Grove Christian. Why would we? I was like,
I also like all that was happening when I was at Myrtle Grove was I was getting in trouble for like reading witchcraft. So like I was reading Charmed and getting in
wait,
trouble.
do you want to
so.
hear about something so funny I did that is
Yes.
like, now I'm looking back, I'm like, I was so shady. So I was a devout good little Christian church girl. That's
Yes,
what
of
everyone
course.
always called me.
I don't
And
think that's right. But
I
yeah.
came across a verse that is something along the lines of like, gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained by a righteous life. And I wrote it out on pieces of paper, probably made like 10, and I handed one out to every teacher with gray hair.
I would do that today. I would literally. Do you want to go do that? Let's go back to Myrtle Grove Christian
And, like,
school.
But the way they were like, Alyssa, thank you so much for giving this to me. I was actually just talking about my hair graying, and you've like
You've like
come forward, like you
brought
would
Jesus
answer
to
in
me
prayer.
about
And I
it.
was just like, wow, like I am such a good girl.
yeah,
like I'm
so
such a good student. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I told that story to a friend a few years ago, and they were dying laughing because that's so shady. And I was like, I
Yeah.
never thought about that.
That also makes so much sense knowing you now. That like tracks. Like that's very.
I've had a
very your
unique genesis.
personality.
I just wanted to stay out of trouble. I wanted to be a good kid. I
Yeah.
didn't want any undue bad attention. I just wanted
wanted to like be.
I was very obedient. I was very respectful and very smart. But then as I aged, I started to realize like I actually have quite a rebellious spirit. Not in a way where I'm like, I want to go against what I'm being told. But
Right.
it's more of like I have critical thinking and I'm like, wait, like I want to understand why I need to
Yeah.
do this or why. And that started to like rear its head in a middle school, high school.
Which I
But
think is a time where it makes sense because you're starting to
Of
also
course.
figure out your own feelings about
I'm
what
becoming a
personality. Yeah,
person.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like your own
No,
development.
I think it's natural, but I was taught to believe it was bad.
Yeah.
So begged the familia to let me go to a public school, and I ended up at Ashley High School, 9th grade, and then that's when our paths crossed again
Yeah.
because we ended up doing yearbook together.
Yeah, I guess that was the beginning, like
Yeah.
the true beginning.
Yeah. You were an editor,
I was an editor.
and I came in as a little staff member.
I was an editor
um,
for Campus Life, which is
yeah, you
also how
were.
JP and I kind of got together because he was in band, and I was like, I'm gonna go take photos.
Was he
of that
really
guy.
in band?
Yes,
Oh,
he was. If he's
shit.
watching this,
You know what's funny? So I was not even aware of yearbook's existence until one day a teacher asked if I could sit in Barcelow's class while I took a test because I needed to be away from the
interesting.
test because it
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
a makeup test. And it was like, sure. And then I came in the yearbook room and I was like,
Oh, it was.
I was like,
a
what is
world.
this magical?
Literally
what?
its own
I
world.
was like, the kids in here are
was like
having
all the
fun.
weirdos.
Everyone is
I loved it.
chatting.
Yes.
Everyone is cool with the teacher. The teacher seems cool. Like everyone was having such a good time. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it's like yearbook. We're making a yearbook and we're all artistic and cool. And I was like,
It was literally just like the weirdo, like artistic, but still like funny, not
I
like in
was
a
hooked.
pretentious way, just in like the fun, like fun
Kids
loving,
with
like
personalities.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
like all the quirky
That
kids kind of
weren't
put in a room,
necessarily one stereotype, one archetype.
right?
You just like
All different types that like
personalities.
worked together, which
Yeah.
made sense because we all just like took different parts of the yearbook on and then made this like beautiful little
exactly.
masterpiece. I still have
Yeah.
so many of them.
But that happened my freshman year, so I was like, "Can I join yearbook?" And like, wait till you're a sophomore, honey. So
Yeah.
as soon as I
The
was a
second you
sophomore-
said, "I'm in,"
and then I came in. That was like Brendan Eastlick and
Mhm.
Jenna and you.
Brendan is still
and
my honest to God best friend in the world.
Really?
Yes,
I just would listen to you guys all the time because I thought you were so
yeah,
funny.
we're the same way when the two
No.
of us get together.
Like I have distinct memories of you guys like talking about how much you love Demi Lovato.
Oh, are you
like,
joking?
sitting
Yes.
in the bath crying to Demi Lovato. And I was
Yes.
like, what?
She was like my rock and roll queen. She
No.
was like my
No, you
like,
guys were like kind of embarrassed, but like loved it.
but
at
like
the
also
same time.
yeah, we had a whole thing with Miley too. We had some phases.
I mean,
of,
Miley,
I mean, I
timeless.
still- yeah,
Come on,
I
I
mean,
still
I know.
ride. Yeah,
I know.
I just was like, oh, they're so cool and so funny, and I feel like I even picked up on some of your humor. Like I took that and like made it into my
yeah.
own. I have a hilarious story. I'm gonna put you a little bit on blast, but
Oh, please.
I think it was your senior year. You're about to graduate or whatever, and we're all passing around your books and signing. You're like, "So you want to sign my yearbook?" I was like, "Yes," because like I looked up to you. I thought you're so cool,
Yes.
and I'm like taking my time signing it because I'm like, I need to say something like
meaningful.
thoughtful. And I was like getting nervous because I was like, okay, I don't want to make it too weird, like a long message, and I'm like overthinking this, right?
Yeah.
And then you go, "Hey, are you done? You've had my yearbook for a long time."
Hey, you're done.
I was
It's been a
so embarrassed.
really
I was
long time. You're like, yeah, no, for sure.
No,
sure.
you were
Just
like getting
thinking-
weirded out. You're like, "Hey, you've had it for a really long time. Or is everything okay over there?" Like you thought I was writing like a whole page. I was like,
like a novel.
I was mortified. I was like, I'm a loser.
I think
Yeah.
that means so much to me. If I bring you my yearbook next time I visit, will you write what you were gonna write then?
I think I did, and you need to find what I wrote.
I really do need to actually.
Send me
maybe
a
as soon as
picture
I
when
get
you get home. Do you
I
still
will.
have your
I do.
yearbooks?
I have. I
have
think
my
I have all
yearbooks
of
too.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because senior year, everyone did his superlatives, and I ended up getting best sense of humor.
Hello.
And still to this day, people are like, "Did you do that yourself because you were on yearbook?" And I'm like, "I'm funny sometimes."
Catherine.
I didn't. I swear to God. I wanted best hair, and I didn't get it. You know who did? Ashley Altman. If she's watching this, I'm like, good on you. She has beautiful blonde
She had
hair.
great hair.
But that's what
She
I
had great
wanted.
hair.
And instead, I just got best. Oh, my personality's great.
Okay. So I was editor in chief my senior year, and I did not do the superlative tally. Like I
Mhm.
wasn't. It's unethical. Like I'm okay with that. And I got best all around, and everyone thought I rigged it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like,
I'm like, sorry, we're just cool people.
I was like, that would be so embarrassing. And like,
Could you
I'm
imagine?
almost embarrassed I got it now. People are like, oh, you
I know.
got
That's
it. Like,
still at
a little
32 years old, people are
convenient.
still like, oh, you got best sense of humor when you were on yearbook.
But I was also like, okay, let's review the tapes. I was athletic. I did dress cute. I was kind. I was funny.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, I
sorry,
fit the bill.
sorry, I'm
I'm not saying
done.
I was like the number one deserving one in the class, but
Yeah.
that's what the people
Let's
wanted.
hate.
So
It's weird on democracy.
don't hate me. Don't hate the player. Hit the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no. So
I
people,
would've voted
it was
for you.
really embarrassing.
For
though,
sure, I
'cause
would've
they're
voted
like,
for you.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I
they're
know.
so snotty. But no, shout out Barslow, who was
Love.
the reigning queen of yearbook. Ashley doesn't even know.
She like made me feel so comfortable with being as fucking weird as I wanted to be. Like she just said some of the most outlandish shit sometimes, and I was like, yeah, dude.
We're obviously talking about our yearbook teacher, Miss Barslow, but we call her Barslow, and she's just one of those adults that instantly recognized you as a human.
Yes,
and
that's such
as
a good way to put
person
that.
Forming a personality, like she didn't treat us like children.
You were
in
like
a-
validated immediately.
Yes.
Like immediately. You walked through that threshold of that door,
Yes.
and it was like, you matter.
She,
and the things you
you
say and
matter.
feel.
I care about you. Let me hear
You have
your
something to
thoughts
say,
and
yeah.
opinions. Let's bond over weirdness. Go, go, go.
Yeah.
Like the more personality, the better.
Like the weirder you get, the more I'm
Yeah.
gonna lean into it.
Yeah, and she just was also very protective and supportive of us. and
100%.
She was there for
And
me
like whatever
a
paths we
lot.
wanted to go down. Yeah, she was there for me with relationship stuff. She was there for me when I
Mhm.
decided I wanted to go to art school. She like helped write recommendations. Like she was
Oh.
very like she was very involved in a bigger way than teachers are in a classical
Right.
sense.
She went
you know
above
what I mean?
and beyond what was required and asked of her
Yes.
because she genuinely loved being the yearbook teacher and she loved us and we were like her prodigies kind
Yeah.
of because we were driven and talented and creative and
And yeah, I think she
cool
saw some
and-
of her in us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and vice
because
versa, you
she's-
know?
she's
like
the same
yeah.
way. Yeah, I don't keep up with her nearly as much as I want to, but Barcelona, I hope you're watching this, and I just want to let you know that I love you so much. I have so much respect for you, and you were paramount to my high school experience, and it wouldn't have been half as wonderful and magical without you. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
investing
big
in
agree.
us.
Big agree.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love her. I'm gonna hit her up next time in Wilmington.
You should.
after you graduated, what we kind of like, didn't talk for a while,
Yeah.
but
My- I
where
mean,
did life take Catherine Hawksworth at
So many
post-graduation?
places. Well, just my life for like, I feel like, I graduated when I was 17 because I was the youngest. My birthday's in October, so I'm like
Yeah.
right on that threshold.
October
So,
3rd.
What is it? Mean Girls? The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the quote?
On October 3rd, he asked me what day it was. It's October
It's
3rd.
October 3rd. Yeah, that's the.
Yeah.
So now, like every year, that's the text I get from people, and I'm like, okay, thank
Like,
you.
never heard
It is
that
like
one.
iconic still.
Next year, act like you have no idea what
I'd
everyone's
be like,
talking
what?
about.
What?
just
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
bit.
I'll just like play dumb and
Like,
be like, I
haha,
don't
is this a
understand.
joke?
Yeah, is this from something? Is this from The Office?
I love The Office.
Actually, when we were still in high school, I moved into an apartment with Brendan.
Why?
Brendan and
No
I,
offense.
because we were like, we are grown up. We're gonna be grown up. Okay, so we moved into an apartment. I was
And your
working.
parents were like, fine.
Well, I was working at PacSun, and he was working at Sunglass Hut in the Independence Mall, and so we were like, we're gonna do this. And I think my parents' mentality was like, they like we both were able to pay some of our own way.
Yeah.
And I think it was more so just that the timing worked out with us being able to start moving in before we graduated, and so we just did. And then we lived together for a while. I left within the first year of graduating high school because JP and I were dating, and he got into the Atlanta Institute of Music, and I got into SCAD. And I could pick which one I wanted to go to between Savannah and Atlanta. And I had applied for graphic design because of Yearbook. Yearbook was a huge inspiration for me. And so I ended up getting a full ride to SCAD. And I went,
wow.
JP and I both moved to Atlanta. He went to music school. I went to SCAD. I dropped out after a year. I lived in Atlanta with him for a while. We ended up splitting up. And then I actually moved to Athens, Georgia after that for like a year. And I just kind of worked and did whatever. Then I moved to Boone. And I did about a year in Boone, maybe a little more than a year in Boone. I don't remember the timelines. And I tried school again.
Mm-hmm.
Still not for me. Turns out
okay.
college and Catherine don't get along.
It's fine.
Which is fine. It just wasn't my path.
Not your journey.
To be honest, I always wanted to work. I've always loved to work. I remember you had to be 15 years old to be able to work at PacSun, and my brother had been working there, and I was like waiting for the day that I turned 15 so I could work there. I was
Okay,
like,
Cora.
I'm ready. Literally, Cora. I was like, I'm ready. And then I just wanted to keep working. I felt like I just finished 4 years of school, and then I tried school at an art school, and it wasn't for me. I didn't like being told how to do art. It was difficult for me to understand, especially coming from someone like Barslow, who gives you so much creative freedom. And then I tried like normal college in Athens and in Boone, and I was like, I just don't want to do more school. I just don't want to. I just want to be a workhorse. That's just what I want to do. And so then after that, I moved back to Atlanta again, and then I lived in Atlanta for a few years, worked my way up the corporate retail ladder, and I ended up doing a little bit of schooling online. I did like a year's worth for Berklee College of Music to at least get a backing in understanding music business, just like a year's worth of just like, honestly, just gaining knowledge and things like that about something I'd already loved my whole life.
That's awesome.
And then I moved to Seattle. And then I was in
Right.
Seattle for quite some time.
How many years
before.
were you there?
I think 3 years total.
Okay.
So this all happened between ages 17 and I opened Modern when I was 24. So for those 7
Okay.
years, I was gone pretty much the whole time.
Okay, because we have to fill the audience in. You were so excited to leave Wilmington, North Carolina. You
Oh.
could not get out fast enough. Can
Like-
you need to explain your relationship and your evolution with Wilmington?
So I was the epitome of I'm never coming back to this place. Like I was like, this is this tiny piece of shit coastal town. When I lived in Seattle, I wouldn't even like acknowledge its name. Like I was just so like I think, and it's not even like looking back on it now, I had a wonderful high school, like I had a great experience here,
Yeah.
like when I was a kid. But I think I just felt like, and at the time it was valid. The town was I just felt like I was too big for it. I wanted
Yeah.
my life to be more, and I had seen people live there their whole lives and
Yeah.
never leave, and
Which is
I
very much a
watched
real
the
thing.
growth get stunted, and I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be that person. Like I just, especially having that huge need to work and want to work in me, it felt like I would just be like standing still, and I didn't want that life for myself. And there's nothing wrong with that life. Some people find
No.
so much joy in it, but it was never going to be for me. And so I feel like a lot of people rebel against their parents or whatever. I rebelled against a whole goddamn city. I was like, I
Yeah, you did.
hate this place, and I'm
No, you
out
did.
and I will never come back.
That was a big part of your personality too.
It was. And I was very, especially, everyone is so vocal when they're in like late teens and early 20s. You think you know every fucking thing. And so I was very like, very vocal about feeling like I was bigger than it. And there's so much pride and ego at that age too that goes with all those things play a part. And I was just like so disinterested. And again, to be fair, at the time, it wasn't really unjustified. There was not much going on, you know, like for several years. And it wasn't until several years later that I started to visit and be like, oh, there's potential here.
Yeah.
And grow, especially once film was becoming a huge thing again. I started to see a trend that was happening, you know. Now my relationship with it's totally different.
Of course.
Now it's like my favorite thing in the world to make people fall in love with Wilmington, North Carolina, which is insane sentence.
Wilmington's also changed a lot.
So much. Honest to God, more than I could put into words. Seeing it day to day, owning a business there, owning a home there. I've been there for 8 years now. And even in the 8 years I've been there, it is like an insane amount of growth. An insane amount. And I think for me, being there in a time where it's growing and feeling I'm a part of the growth, I loved living in all these major cities and stuff, or, you know, a couple I lived in. But it was like, I felt like they had already developed so much. And I was just along for the ride. And I feel like I really like being in this place now where I'm part of the development, if that makes sense.
It's special.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, you have a stake in Wilmington. You grew up there. You do love it. You've come to love it. You've come to appreciate it. And just to provide more context, I will say, I totally agree with you that different strokes for different folks. There are some people who are born, raised, live there their whole life, and they're as happy as a clam. And more power to you, honest to God. But there is this, maybe it's dying down now, but I felt this when I was growing up and going through school. I constantly felt like people were trying to pressure me into staying. Like, are you going to go to UNCW? Like, you have to stay in Wilmington. Wilmington's the best. You're never going to find better. It was constantly this thing being rammed down my throat where I almost felt a little gaslit because I'm like, who's to say I can't have amazing experiences elsewhere?
Right.
And I didn't understand the whole, why am I going to spend tons of money on tuition to stay in my hometown?
To be honest, I think a lot of that is people who have like lived in a town for a really long time. I feel like a lot of that pressure, at least generally speaking, I feel like comes from family a lot of the time. I will say I never really felt that. I think I got really lucky in a way a lot of people don't also, because I came from parents who had moved around and really went out on their own. Yeah. If I hadn't have been a product of that and it hadn't been instilled in me at a young age, my parents, the second that I was like, I want to leave Wilmington, they were like, what's the plan? How are you going to make money? What are you going to, like, they were very like,
practical.
Go.
Yeah.
But you have to know what that looks like.
Yeah.
It was the same way they pulled me out of Christian school. They were like, it's time for the next chapter of your life. And like, you got to go embark on it because you can't just stay put. It just doesn't, you're never going to get to where you want to be or grow or, and I guess some people can, but there is that pressure, especially if you're born and raised in one place. Yeah. I've seen it in other people to like, well, doesn't it just make sense for you to be here? Yeah, there's nowhere better than here. It's like, okay, well, even if there isn't, I'm not going to know that unless I see something else.
Let me go live,
you have
make
to have
my
exposure.
Own informed
you
experiences. I do think it's kind of the easy way of life is just to stay with what you've known.
It is.
And it's safe and it's comfortable.
Too many people are happy with comfortable. Yeah. And I thrive in being uncomfortable. Yeah. Like I thrive, that's my, because I honestly feel like when your back's against a wall and you don't have all the answers, that's when you figure out who you really are and what you really want. Yes. Because it's like how you respond to certain things and how you realize you are in certain situations. And if you're just in your comfort zone all the time, you're never going to know those things.
Absolutely.
You know? And so like, you have to be, and I'm sure you've had them being here, those times where you're like on the fucking kitchen floor being like, how am I going to make rent? What am I going to do? Do I have a sense of direction? Those moments I feel like are like the really big, crucial things that help you figure out what's next. And I feel like a lot of the time, if you don't get in an uncomfortable position, those things don't really happen, you know? And even just meeting new people, like learning about their stories and paths and
the way my entire life exploded and opened up and transformed in the most beautiful way. This isn't even a knock on Wilmington. It's just saying like when I got out of the bubble of the hometown I lived in, everything shifted and changed in a way I'm so profoundly grateful it did. Like I met people from all different walks of life, which I didn't have the exposure to in Wilmington. I went away to college. I went to Charlotte, which is still in North Carolina, but it's 4 hours outside of Wilmington, and it's the biggest city in North Carolina. Yeah. I always had this sense that I wanted to be in a city. Wilmington felt much too small for me. I remember feeling like really
claustrophobic.
I just felt antsy. Yeah, I just remember like driving around in my car being like, oh, I can't wait to be somewhere else. Yeah. Like, I can't wait. And I'm so glad I grew up there. I really had really wonderful moments growing up there. Yeah. And like, you know, my first jobs, like working at Squiggly's in Carolina Beach.
Oh my God, I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, I was
you were a Squiggly's girl?
I was.
That was like the thing that all the cool girls did. Like Trisha did that too. Shout out Trisha.
No.
But like there,
it's like you worked at Brits, Squiggly's, or maybe a third party.
And that was pretty. And you were like a CB girl, and it was like very cool.
Yeah. No, I was a squiggly girl. My sister went on to be a family
Oh my
legacy.
goodness.
But
No
no, so
kidding.
like I had these special, cool, picturesque moments looking back where I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I got to experience that. And growing up at the beach, hello.
Oh yeah,
come
I mean it's a
on.
great.
No, I had a
great
great
life.
I had a great life growing up there, but I felt the lack of growth. Like I was very aware of that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I had that awareness.
And I think
wanted to
everyone
get out.
feels that, but I think it's the awareness aspect. I think everyone, no matter what anyone says, I think everyone feels at some point if they stay and they never go, that like itch or that like
Yeah.
I know there's more.
And that's
And
a
it's
normal
like-
feeling. And
it's
it has nothing
healthy.
to do with being like, fuck this
It's
place.
nothing wrong
It's
with
just
the
like,
place. It's just the reality
go
of it's
get
all you've
other
known.
experiences.
Exactly.
Because you will grow, you will learn, you will evolve, and that is going to serve you long
Yeah.
term.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I moved and I went to Charlotte and I was there for 6 years. And then I was like, I feel like I've outgrown Charlotte. I've always wanted to live in New York City. Why don't I just go for it? Now's the time. I really have no reason not to. And so many people try to talk me out of it. Like everyone. They really thought I was going to die here.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
God. Why? You're just moving to a big city.
I mean, this is a hard city to move to for sure. And I'm not going to act like that wasn't quite a big jump.
No, I mean it's a huge, of course.
and
it
I was
is.
only 24 at the time.
Yeah.
Which now I look back and I'm like, thank God I moved then because I was so naive in the best way.
I was gonna say I also
it
feel like that's
protected
the
me.
time.
Yeah.
That was kind of my
no,
relationship with Seattle. Was like I don't really know what I'm doing, and that's the best spot to be in.
I didn't have all this anxiety and more rationale talk me out of it, which I
Right.
think if I had waited, I would have maybe talked myself out of it. But because I was just so determined and wanted to do it so badly, I just went for it. And I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. And I did figure it out. And it was really hard, but I'm so proud of myself and like glad I did it because I am very happy here and I feel like I've made a pretty decent life for myself
Yeah.
thus far.
And I'm sure you've learned so much about yourself.
my brain has doubled.
Yeah.
Like the people I've
From
met,
just like
the
exposure,
things I've learned,
you know?
and just like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in sponge mode all the time when I'm here. I'm just walking around meeting people, learning things, seeing things, consuming arts and culture. Like I'm
Yeah.
at the epicenter of the world.
You literally
and
are.
it feels like a privilege to live here.
Yeah.
And I never like of course I go back home plenty. Like
Yeah.
there's things I get in North Carolina that I haven't been able to find here. Like I really need the both of
Yeah.
these things in my life to feel like my most happy version of me. Both of these places have made me who I am.
Exactly.
It's like
yeah.
this show literally would not have ever started if I hadn't moved here.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely
think
right.
I would have had the
I don't think you would have had the like inspiration, if I'm being honest.
no,
you
I
know?
don't I think I would have been like, that's silly.
Yeah.
But then when I moved here and I live amongst so many creatives doing so many cool, interesting, weird things, and it's celebrated and
Yeah.
it's respected here. And I don't always feel like that's the same tone in Wilmington. Not to say Wilmington doesn't have a creative scene, obviously it does. But it's just everyone's like, yeah, go for it here.
It's like a different sense of like freedom with your creativity, for
Yes.
sure. I totally
feel like
see
nothing's
that.
off the table here.
Exactly.
I could do
It's just
the
a different, and that's also
weirdest
just
thing.
like that's just New York, baby. You know what I
The
mean?
weirder
That's
the
just
better.
like
the weirder
exactly.
the better. I'm not weird enough,
You know?
honestly, some
Just
of the time.
this
but-
is if there's anywhere in the world to lean into it, it's here. You know?
Exactly.
So.
And I feel so enriched living here. But as I've aged, I've also really started to open my heart more to Wilmington. And I've kind of come to the conclusion like, wow, I really need to like keep a little bit of an anchor in this place because I really get all of my like emotional support and like close connection nutrients
Yeah.
there. Because I haven't been able to replicate the same community. I have community here and it's great. It's just different. And I think people who grew up in the South understand what I'm talking about. It's just like you were raised in this specific culture that's very neighborly and hospitality and like checking on your neighbor and
very
we'll
like
drop
all in kind of like
all
big
in.
love.
Like we will
yeah.
drop everything to help you, not even a question. No one blinks.
Yeah.
And like I still feel like I try to operate by that and it's not super common here. And that's not even like a knock on people who live here. It's just a different
No, it's just a
culture.
different. I had a really hard time with that when I moved to Seattle. I had been
I
warned
believe
about
that.
the Seattle freeze, which is like I
Yes.
thought was like a dramatic sentiment, and it turned out it was like it's truly just that like everyone is very much in their own life. Giving or putting someone else first is just not common there, and it doesn't mean that
Yeah.
anyone's. And the friends I made there are still my friends. They're my lifelong friends. It was a different approach to friendship for sure. It was a different way of going about it.
Tell me a little bit more about your Seattle days.
Those were the best days of my life.
Yeah.
Outside of, I mean, like I love owning my business, you know, and I love everything about where my life's at now. But if I had to go back to a time in my life and be like, that is the reason why I am the person that I am today, it is my time in Seattle. Honest to God, I met the best people in my life out there, all of which I would say I'm still extremely close with. I go back every year. It's the most beautiful place in the country, in my opinion.
The PNW is
it is unbelievable.
America's best.
And it had the perfect mix of, I lived right in the middle of the city. I worked downtown on Fifth Avenue. I could drive 30 to 45 minutes outside of the city, and I would just be in the middle of nowhere mountains, feel like I'm in Twilight. And I was just like, I just loved it. I loved it so much. It is so much my home in a way. And the truth is, if I could have afforded to do what I do there, I probably would have. In the grand scheme of things, it was right for me to come back to Wilmington because I needed, for so many reasons. My family, I think it's so special that I fixed my own relationship with the town, and my own ego kind of, and all those things. But I have nothing but just unbelievably positive things to say about my whole time in Seattle. And I think that was it was the first time I'd ever moved somewhere where I truly did not know a soul. And I was as far away as I could go without basically going to Alaska or Hawaii or another country. Like I was as far as I could fucking go.
Yeah.
And it was like, all the chips were down. It was like, all right, now who are we actually going to be? This relationship's done. The moving around the East Coast is done. We decided we didn't want to do school. So like all these things that have defined you for all this time, now you don't have them. You got no safety net, no family around. So like now who are you?
Yeah.
And it was the most crucial time for my development as a person by a landslide. That's
awesome.
I will always, I just wouldn't be me without it, truly. All my best parts of me come from my time in Seattle.
Wow.
I really, really believe that.
That's really high praise and
Huge.
beautiful.
Yes.
You really needed all these chapters of your life to come together.
100%. Every single one of them played a crucial role. And it's that whole thing of like, you can look back, had I not met this one person, I would have never thought to visit this one place. Like I literally ended up visiting Seattle because someone I met in Atlanta had a high school friend who had talked about how cool it was. And I watched Grey's Anatomy one time. And I said, fuck it, I'm going to go visit. Like, you just never know when you're going to meet a person or experience a thing that's going to change your entire trajectory of life.
So true.
And it happens so quickly. And all of a sudden, your life is completely different than you thought it would be. And you can't imagine it ever being the way it was before. It's just wild.
You're a living, breathing testament that getting outside of your comfort zone and just going for it and changing it up really pays leaps and bounds forward.
Does. And even if you end up right back where you fucking started,
you're
never the
something.
same person.
You still
learn
something.
And you bring all of that back with you, and you create a better life for yourself because of it.
Exactly.
It's like it's a really special full circle thing for me, for sure.
Yeah. So if you're listening or watching this, and maybe you have this inclination or itch that you need to go, you need to do something different, you got to change it up.
You gotta go.
Take this as the sign, man. Do
The
it.
worst, I remember
Go
the day
for
that I
it.
left to go to Seattle with my high school boyfriend. My dad sat down with the two of us and he was like, listen, it takes a lot of guts to go. And he was like, but it takes even more guts to turn around and say, hey, it didn't work out, or it did, or I'm
True.
going to go to the next place, or whatever. He was like, there's no failing. There's no failing.
No.
It's all a lesson.
Right.
That's what, and I feel like you have to get past that. And at that age, it's so hard because you're just trying to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And so you want the world to believe that you already know who you are, but you sure as shit don't know who you are. And so it's this like weird internal battle of like, I know that I've got to go, but I'm scared, but I'm not going to tell anyone that I'm scared. And what am I going to learn? And how am I going to utilize it in my life? And, but you have to, you got to go.
You got to go. And she's exactly right. If it doesn't work out, it's not failure. It's just
No.
redirection.
It's just a part of your,
Yeah.
my dad has always said life's a train, and you go on all these different, like you stop at places you didn't think you would, or you go right where you thought you'd go left, and you always end up where you're supposed to end up. So you might as well just enjoy the fucking ride.
It's beautiful,
See where
bruv.
it takes you. You know what I
Beautiful.
mean?
My other piece of unsolicited advice is if you go somewhere, I say give it a good 2-year try.
I think so too.
But if your intuition is screaming at you to get out, like trust yourself at the end
I
of the
think
day. But 2 years
that was
is, like,
definitely
really,
everywhere I lived. I did at least 2 years,
Yeah.
except for Boone. But I had that was just a bad year. Like it was just
you trusted your intuition to get
I
out.
knew I literally, what's so funny is actually a friend of mine came to visit me in Boone and called my mom and was like, she's gotta get out of here. Like it was just everyone I feel like has that one really not good year in their like teen 20s. That was mine. But it was like, I just knew it was just time to go. Like I knew it was not a good fit for me.
Glad you survived.
But generally
Boone.
speaking, I agree because I feel like the first year you're getting the lay of the land and figuring out like even how you're going to meet people. Like for me, it was a lot of like through work, or I'd go to coffee shops in my neighborhood and make friends with baristas and stuff like that. Because I was also very young when I did all this. I was like, when I moved to Seattle, I just turned 21. So I was like, I'm not even really going to bars yet, you know?
Yeah.
And then the second year is when you really get in the swing of your life.
Yeah.
And that's when you can kind of decide.
So after Seattle, you move back to Wilmington
Yeah.
and you decide to open your business, Modern Legend. Tell us about that experience. What inspired that?
It's so funny now that I'm telling all these stories. So much of it is actually me and my dad, like, which is a very special thing.
Mike?
So my whole life, my dad has given me. He makes burnt CDs. Still to this day, he does this. By the way, he burns CDs and he does like track list and writes what songs are on it. Music has always been our language. Like it's like our soul. I have like a Sam Cooke tattoo on my arm for him. Like that's always been like how we.
So
It's our
cool.
language. When I moved out to Seattle, all these years, I've always had all these CDs in my car that I still to this day have in my car that I listen to all the time. And I was driving around Seattle and I was like, I just have this thing in me that is like, it's time to go home. And like, I just had this feeling. And I was driving around and there was a Neil Young song that came on called Unknown Legend. I got back to my apartment that night and my roommate, who's one of my very dear friends that now lives in Wilmington and owns a house up the street from me, was living with me in Seattle at this point. And he's sitting on the porch when I get home. He's smoking a cigarette. And he just like, I come in and I'm kind of in a mood and he goes, do you ever think about going home? I sat down next to him and I was like, Bobby, it's time to go home. And he was like, it's time to go home. We both just knew. It was so weird. But of course, once you decide it's time to go home, then it's like, okay, but what am I going to do? You know what I mean? It's like,
But now what?
But I have to have a career. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so that night, I like stayed up all night. I was in my room. I felt like I was like Charlie Day in the episode of It's Always Sunny with all the piecing together. I was like trying to think like, okay, I love records. I have a huge knowledge of music. I don't want to do what my parents do. I've worked retail since I was 15. Wilmington's really cool and it has a lot of room for opportunity, but like, how do I implement that? Like, do I want to open my own store? I can't open my own store. That's crazy. And then like David Bowie's Modern Love comes on and I'm just like in my room in my apartment in Seattle and I'm dancing around and I'm like, I'm going to fucking do this, dude. I'm going to open my own shop. I'm going to do
Hell
it.
yeah.
I'm going to do it. I called my family and I was like, all right, my brother and sister-in-law had told me they wanted to start having kids. My parents were getting older. You know, my parents are much older. And, you know, I think I'm going to come home. And my dad's laughing. He was like, no, you're fucking not. And I was like, I am. I was like, I think it's time to come home and this is what I want to do. I laid it all out. I said, I want to incorporate records. There's no record store in downtown Wilmington. I want to incorporate records. I want to be on Front Street. I want to incorporate men's and women's clothing. I want to incorporate pop culture and home goods, music-related things, funny stuff. I want anyone in the world to walk in that place and feel like, not that like fucking snooty record store vibe. Like,
Yeah.
they can come in and buy a deep cut Radiohead record, but they can also buy Taylor Swift and also buy Dave Brubeck and whatever the fuck they want. And it's going to be a great time. I wanted to create a space where anyone from any age could come in and like genuinely enjoy their experience and like feel like they could laugh, find something they liked and incorporate all these things that I loved, including like my background in art and creative design and all those things. So sure enough, I ended up visiting Wilmington once in between then, and I found I started out in this really, really tiny space that was inside of a bigger building. Yeah, tiny. I mean, it was like the size of your apartment, honestly. Maybe smaller.
It was in the brick place,
It was in
right?
the brick. It was in
Yeah.
Cotton Exchange. It was a tiny little
I'm so glad I got
upstairs
to
corner.
see that moment in
I
time.
didn't know that you saw that. I ended up coming back and opening in October 2016.
Okay, yes.
And I started there. I was there for about 6 months.
I came in November for Thanksgiving, and I came with one of my friends.
So yeah.
And I bought a hat with a pizza or fries on it.
That makes
I don't
that
have it
makes me
anymore.
so
I'm
happy.
sorry,
And
but
when
yeah.
And when I first opened, all I had was records and some home goods. I hadn't incorporated like apparel. It was like nothing on the caliber it is now. And so I was there for a little bit and then I moved to the space I'm in now and I've been in that space this whole time, right in the middle of Front Street.
Your space now is unreal. I will tell the
gorgeous. I'm so
audience
proud.
I fully plan on doing a beautiful, delicious profile of Modern
Yay.
Legend Cat Store. I mean, you guys have got to see this place. It's sick.
Thank
How
you.
you've decorated it in the layout. Because
That's what I mean. I've been able to incorporate all that creative,
so good.
you know?
It's so good. It's so cutie patootie.
It's very like retro
cool.
meets modern. That's where the name comes from. So going back, the David Bowie Modern Love moment,
Beautiful.
defining moment, me dancing around, coming up with the idea, and the Neil Young driving around dad CD moment is what made me come up with. I took Unknown Legend and Modern Love and I put the two together and made it Modern Legend.
Stunning.
So yeah, and we still
Iconic.
it now kind of just goes by modern. I feel like it's very like we kind of dropped the legend part for the most part, but it's still that's where it
Modern.
comes from.
Yeah, no, it's the coolest store in downtown Wilmington. Like I said, you have to go check it out. And your record collection there is so good. Like,
Thank
that's one
you.
thing I really appreciate about you. Like, yes, you are through and through a music person. You know music inside and out. You have an incredible range of taste.
Thank you.
You know deep cuts, you know the old school stuff. You know everything your dad has grown up on
Oh, yeah,
because like
yeah.
you've done the music thing together, but you also are like, I love Taylor Swift and that's okay. You
Yeah.
can love pop too. Like that doesn't make me I'm not better than anyone else. Like
No.
my taste, and this is my one gripe with music. People, I hate when people are snooty about their musical taste. They're
Me
like,
too.
you like pop music?
That's exactly why.
Loser."
Literally,
I'm
that's
like,
why I opened my business. I swear to God.
I'm like, actually, pop music is good.
Also,
and
hating pop music doesn't make you deep. Sorry, it doesn't make you cool. It doesn't make you
no.
like. And like pop music is the reason
Actually
why it's
makes
like the
you, like, a-
most well known in the world, and also it takes some of the best producers of all time to do some of that
Hello,
stuff.
and taste
So,
is subjective. Like
yeah.
you can like what you like without yucking what someone else
I hate
likes
that.
or like talking down to them.
So that's also something I hate, which is a huge part. Like I've said, there are definitely times where you can like walk in a record store and you feel judged the second
can't, Kat,
you walk in.
I can't deal
and
with
I'm like,
it. I
will
run for the
never,
hills.
never create
I
that space. I will
hate
talk
that
about music all
vibe.
day long, and I have an extreme knowledge of it, and I love it, and it is truly like my passion. But I also will absolutely go from like a Taylor Swift song to like a John Coltrane quartet on ballads record the other night. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I don't.
You're a woman who contains multitudes. You can go from one end to the next. Literally, I have gone into record stores here in Brooklyn, New York, USA, where I've been like, do you have Harry Styles' latest? Because I'm like, I wanted to get a Christmas present for my
Yeah.
brother-in-law. They're like, you can try Best Buy.
Ugh. Yuck. So yikes. I hate that
I
shit.
was like,
but I know
so
there's places
so
like that in
sorry, I was
Wilmington,
trying to
you know?
support a local
Yeah.
business.
Exactly. So that was a huge thing. It was for me. It was a lot of wanting to put something out there that was not that vibe,
Mhm.
and also like wanting to be a woman-owned record store.
Hello.
That is not
Hello.
a very common
No.
thing. We actually have a mug that a local potter made that's like a design of like all of the girls on staff, and it's like the Modern Legend family. And on the back, it's like, and by the way, hell yeah, we picked the records. Because a number of times an old man has come in and been like, oh, honey, this is a great collection. Who could have possibly picked this? And Haley and I we're all just like, we
Who
did. We
could
did.
have possibly picked
Yeah.
this?
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Makes me angry.
It makes me really happy too to be able to just be like, you know, like there's all types of different people that have a deep, deep love for music. People do it with books, with art, with
Hello.
history, with TV, with film, you know? And so it's like
Yes.
that's just my love, you know, but I've always wanted to really share it with people, and especially I think if you really love something, you aren't judgmental with it, which is exactly what I've tried to implement with my business. So
It's so crazy that you have enough brain space to run a business and have good taste in music.
yeah, it's like, what do you mean? Yeah, you can do that
Legendary.
as a woman. I'm just kidding.
Scientists should
Yeah.
study your brain because you have defied all
It
odds.
doesn't make any sense to me.
It's been really, really awesome and cool to see you start like small potatoes and expand to what you have now.
Yeah.
And you're going on 8 years.
8 years. We just
You've
turned
survived
8.
hurricanes, pandemics, economic recessions. Like,
Yes, a lot of
girl,
things.
you're still standing strong and tall. I'm proud
Thank
of
you. Thank you so much.
And it's a good, cool store. And like you've added flair and a much needed like youthful vibe to downtown. And like
Yes.
you really kickstarted more creative projects, endeavors, pursuits. I mean, not you single handedly,
No,
but like
I
you've
think
helped.
I think
lead
there
the
was
way.
a wave of inspiration around the same time that I opened Modern, and I think it's been a
Absolutely.
huge step forward for Wilmington. And I've seen so much. It's not about me, but I think I was a part of the first wave of people kind of doing some
Yeah.
really special stuff there, and I've seen so much of it since. That's made it such a fun city to live in.
Yeah, you were one of the first people who saw potential. and
That's
you took
I
a
think
risk
that is I think that is I
in
will
this
say
new age of
I
Wilmington.
agree with that.
Yeah,
I think I took a risk at a time where honestly there was a lot of risk to be. It was a big risk.
it wasn't your
but
success
it-
was by no means promised.
No,
there.
and
Absolutely
it was.
not.
I honest to God was like this. This might have a couple years in it, but I don't really know how
Yeah.
this is going to shake out. And now it's like, you know, I couldn't have possibly picked a better time to have opened a business with the way Wilmington's growing. So I'm so glad I trusted my gut.
Unbelievable.
I'm so glad I danced around my room to fucking David Bowie. You know, it was just the timing was perfect. I'm so glad I came home. My roommate was like, "You think it's time to go home?" I was like, "What?"
All the synchronicities and the beautiful things that happen. That it's such a good story.
I am a big believer of this. Life is always giving you signs. You just have to listen or be open to
Yes.
seeing them. But they're always there. And always trust your gut.
1,000%.
Always trust your gut.
Hello.
Always.
I hope you're taking notes. A lot of lessons to be learned here. Well, I can't wait to visit Modern Legend next.
know.
And again, if you're in the Wilmington area, go make a trip down. Catherine is often in the store, and she would be so delighted to
I
talk to you.
would.
I mean,
Could you
obviously
imagine if someone came in, they were like, I listen to this podcast. I'd be like,
I would shit
I'd be so
myself
happy.
because you
Yeah.
would tell me.
I would
but,
also shit myself. We shit
you'd be
ourselves
like, I'm a
together.
celebrity.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's the coolest, the realest. Like she is like this in real life. Obviously, like, come on, I only have cool,
So
fun,
true.
interesting people on here. But I love every time I go in there. I always have to pick up a little goodie here or there. But yeah, really good stuff. I'm really inspired by you. I look up to you as an entrepreneur and a community leader, and just someone who has unapologetically marched to the beat of their own drum, but has also like gracefully accepted and champions all the unique chapters and evolution of your life. It
Thank
takes
you.
a lot of humility to do.
That's a good word for it. I was
Yeah.
going to say a lot of willingness to be able to kind of be like, I don't know everything. And there's certain
Yeah.
things that you look back on and you're like, when I was a kid, my mom would come in my room and I would have my CD collection
Yes,
out.
please. Yes,
And
thank you for bringing this up.
I had a fake cash register in my room. I shit you not. And she would come in my room and I'd be like, okay, well, like, what do you want to purchase? And she would purchase CDs from my drawer and I would review them. Like I would review whatever CD she was buying, rate them or whatever. And I would check her out on my little register. And so it's so funny. You always are who you are. There's things that are just you by nature. You know, we're all products of our environment, yes. And we all have obviously free will in the choices we make and the paths we go down. But there's certain things that you just have always loved and they're part of your character.
Mhm.
And if you're lucky enough to realize it and recognize it and able to make a career and a life out of it, like I couldn't imagine a more beautiful thing someone could have for themselves. If I could
Agreed.
go back to that girl and be like, someday we're going to do this
For
on a
real.
big scale and it's going to be so fucking cool. And you're going to be in your hometown that you hated, but ended up being really cool. And you're going to be a good girl and it's going to be awesome. Such a special thing for me to even, I don't take enough time to kind of sit back
Yeah.
and think about that sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's special doing stuff like this. And thank you
Yeah.
for having me because it's like fun to go back and reflect because you forget to sometimes, you know?
Again, I think you have an incredible story, and you even just shared that anecdote with me the other day about the whole like I used to make my mom buy records from me, and I'm like,
yeah.
Kat, this
Yeah,
was
it makes so much
literally
sense. Yeah.
decades in the making. Like I
Yeah.
said in the introduction, like Modern Legend was conceptualized before you even knew
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good on you. I'm proud of you. Thank you for sharing about your business.
course.
All right, Kat, now is the time of the show where I want to jump to Fronk 5. If you're tuning in for the first time, Fronk 5 is a segment where I ask the guests to come and educate us about a topic of their choosing. It could be a niche interest, a passion project. Literally, I leave it wide open for their interpretation to teach us 5 things. So, Catherine.
Catherine.
What would you like to share with us today?
I have to talk about music, right? I feel like
Duh.
it's like an obvious.
Lay it on
like-
us, sister.
So I start and end every single day with a record. Every single day. I wake up every
Beautiful.
single morning and I put a record on. It's how I start my day. And every single night, as I'm, winding down for the night, I have
Yeah.
a record on. So I have a huge collection at home. And I
Uh-huh.
think that there's records that I couldn't live without, that I, honest to God, think are like some
5
of the best
records you
records
can't live
ever
with?
made.
Let's
So I think
Okay, I'm so
we
excited.
should do 5 records that I
Yes,
couldn't live without, right? I
absolutely.
feel like that's
I'm
fun.
dying to know your 5
And I'm
records of
realizing
choice.
now as I'm saying it
You're panicking.
that I'm thinking about my choices. There's a couple I know for sure. I would
Start
put
strong.
Jeff Buckley's Grace
Mm.
is potentially my favorite record of all time. I
Wow.
think that man's voice is outrageous, and I think that I am so sad that he died when he did.
Yeah.
But I think it's an incredibly crucial record for what was happening at the time in music, and just so much soul and beauty in his music. I am a lifelong diehard Radiohead fan. If I had to pick one, I'd probably say OK Computer.
Great.
I think that they were such a part of like the formative experimental era that the 90s were going through in the late 90s
yeah.
into the early 2000s. And they're weird and brilliant, and I love them. This is where my English will really come out. The Stone Roses.
Okay.
Yeah, self-titled. And they are huge. Manchester United, who's like my Premier League team, they go hand in hand together. So I've loved the Stone Roses my whole life, really. They only put out 2 records. One that was really huge in 1989, and it was, I think it's a perfect. I think that actually might be my favorite record of all time, if I had
Wow.
to guess.
Okay.
I have to throw Oasis in there. What's the Story, Morning Glory?
Do you plan to go see them?
I am
on
seeing
the-
them in Scotland. I am seeing them in Scotland.
Okay.
And so Richard Ashcraft from The Verve is actually opening for Oasis, so I will get to see 2 of my absolute all-time favorite 90s. I'm a big 90s Britpop gal. I love
Yeah.
Blur. I love all that
Yeah.
stuff, So that is going to be huge. I mean, something I never thought I'd see in my life.
What's it like to be God's favorite?
I know, right? I know. I'm like, I did something right. And then I would put Carole King's Tapestry up there as far as
Beautiful.
female. I think she's one of the most fascinating women in music. I think that she has written so many songs that people don't even know. She did so much for the Shirelles, for Smokey Robinson, so many wonderful people over time, crucial in the world of songwriting. So yeah, those are probably some
That's
of my
an
tops.
all-star cast.
There's so many more, and like if you
Right.
go down like a John Prine route, if we're talking about songwriting, I mean, there's so much great jazz, you
Yeah.
know. But those, if I honest to God, it was like I would say those are my tip top.
I think that's a solid list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Desert Island, if you will. If I had nothing to
Okay.
listen to other than that.
Beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing. I was a little disappointed to not hear Melodrama by Lord on there, but that's okay.
Like I'm a little confused. I do, man. I love Lord. She's definitely about to put out a record. I can feel it in my bones. She's been teasing, and I'm like, I know something's coming
Melodrama
out.
is probably my favorite
Pure
pop
Heroine,
album
too.
ever. No,
I thought that
it's
was a
all
great
great,
record.
but like Melodrama changed my brain
Yeah,
chemistry.
that is a great pop record.
This is like nothing I've ever heard, and I love every single song so much on this album. This sad but reflective, yet haunting, yet introspective writing about herself.
Yeah.
That like I feel like a lot of meaning goes over people's heads, but it's just so good.
I actually think she's one of the best pop artists of
I
our
do
time.
too.
And I feel like she gets overlooked a lot.
No,
And
she does.
I think it's good that she's not doing anything right now because it's such a huge time for girl pop, and it probably would get a little swept under. But I'm hoping in the next year she comes out with something. I know that she's out there doing some shit because she was with Charlie XCX and all that. So I'm like, she's up to something.
No,
Just
she
gotta wait and see.
She is. Like, if she can just wrangle sometime with Jack Antonoff, her
I know.
guy, like,
Also,
it'll be fine.
the guy.
Kat, I really need to know what you think of Jack Antonoff.
I mean, I think he's like one of the most brilliant creatives
do
and
too.
producers of our time. I think it's like an undeniable fact that he's a great pop producer. Do I think he's necessarily great outside of that? I don't really know. But I think as far as pop music, it's like an insane.
History books will be
talent.
mentioning him
Yes.
if there are history books left. Thanks, Trump.
Shut up.
No. The way he has built our current day pop.
Yes. And not just Taylor, Sabrina. And I mean, so he's
Lana.
very involved in the massive world of pop that's happening. He is really to
Carly
thank
Rae
for a
Jepsen.
huge
Like,
amount of
I
it.
mean, he's worked with everyone.
Yeah.
No, I love that man.
But also Bleachers is great. Like his own stuff's great too.
Kat,
Yeah.
I love Bleachers.
Yes, me too. Me too.
I loved Fun.
Me too.
Fun was
That's
great.
so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then before Fun,
No.
it was the format. Do you remember the format?
I'd never gotten
So this
to
was
the
like
format.
before. This was, but he's who really made it.
Okay.
Fun.
I'm gonna go back and do some because anything he's ever touched,
He's
I
great.
like
Yeah, he's great.
a lot. I think he's
Fun had such a big moment. That was like 2012. That was like a huge moment.
It was 2012,
Yes.
and then dispersed.
Yes.
I can't think because they hated working with each
It was
other.
like
or
them and like
something.
Arcade Fire. There was like a big moment for Arcade Fire around the Vampire
Arcade
Weekend.
Fire.
That was definitely when hipster was like guys in fedoras era. That was like definitely that time, like 2012. Girls were wearing a lot of scarves for like no reason and owl necklaces.
Oh,
That was a
I
thing.
had 2 or 3.
Yeah.
at least.
And like the
Thin
berets that would be like
scarves, so
that. Yes,
disgusting.
yes. It'd be the middle of summer and I'd be wearing a scarf.
Okay, so Catherine, it's already that time of the show where I must ask you the last and essential question of the show,
Okay.
which is, what is something you would like to be Fronk about?
Happiness looks very different for everybody. Like very different for everybody. Everyone has a hell of an ego and most people aren't going to admit it. But you got to just be willing to like let that go sometimes and get out there and try life and try different things. You're never going to have all the answers ever. Like I'm 32, I don't have all the answers. My dad's 78, he doesn't have all the answers. It's never going to happen. Trust your gut, get out there and have a good time. Experience life because it is short, and in theory, as far as we know, it only happens once. At least as like these versions of ourselves.
Right.
I don't personally want to waste it sitting around wondering what it could have been like. So get out there and do the damn thing. And then also, I don't think Fleetwood Mac is that good, and I feel like I just have to say it. That's the real hot take. Mainly Stevie Nicks. Chris McVie is
Why?
actually fantastic. It's just not
Wait.
my thing. Listen, it's the same way I feel about you two. I understand that it's good music, but do I think it should be like so life altering? Like this is like
Do you think you should get it for
like
free
do
on
I
your
think
iPhone?
it should be like really? That was so weird.
So random.
People are like, that's one of the best rock bands of all time. I'm like, no, I don't think that.
They're
It's fine.
They're a good, successful
It's
band.
yeah, like that's fine. It's fine.
Is
It's just
it-
not my bag. I feel
Okay.
like everyone. I feel like when you're like a real music lover, you obviously like Fleet. Like, how could you not? So I
Yeah.
always like people are always so shocked
Everyone's entitled to
when
their
I
own
say that. I
opinion.
know, but your reactions were great.
No, I mean because like Fleetwood Mac is so widely
widely loved,
and
and it's not even
celebrated.
like I'm trying to be. It's just
Yeah.
like not my thing. I don't know.
That's fair.
But it's funny because so much of it does fit my personality. Witchy ways, and I live by the ocean, and I love being outdoors and long
Yeah.
hair, and like it all tracks. I just my bag.
It's okay. I mean, I'm not gonna act like I'm the biggest fan in the world. I do like Fleetwood Mac. Do I know their discography extensively? Absolutely
I
not.
also
I probably
don't. So
only
maybe I
like
need to
their
dive in more. Who
mainstream
knows?
stuff, like if we're being real. But I respect the hell out of Stevie Nicks. I think she's done some good things for the music industry.
Oh, of course she has.
And
I mean, she's like a total powerhouse.
Catherine, I could gab with you all damn day.
And we're going to
And
tonight
we
over
were
drinks.
going tonight. We're going to drinks and get pizza. Everyone's jealous. And I cannot thank you enough for making the time, the effort to come up here and support my little endeavor, this silly little show. It's people like you that make this show so great. You're fascinating. You're a wealth of knowledge. You're a trove of stories, as I said. You also inspire me to want to meet other people too. You're one of those people when you meet, it's like, this is why I like meeting people. This is why I like getting to know people and connect
I think
because of
that's
all the
so
things I learned.
important. In like
Yeah.
to want to share your story, but to also be inspired by others.
Yes.
That's like what, isn't that like, not to be cheesy, but that's like what life is about.
Guys, that's
That's
what
what
life
this
is about.
It
We're
is.
doing it.
Sharing your story and learning
Yeah.
from each other and like accepting your own humanity and sharing
Yeah.
it with one another. I think it's like a
Hello.
very special
My
thing.
number one soapbox is meeting people is the greatest education in life you'll ever
It
get.
absolutely is, which I think is what is really like the backstory of my whole thing this whole time. Getting out
Right.
there and meeting people and experiencing new things.
Yeah.
It's how you learn about yourself, what you want out of life, what you expect out of each other.
Amen.
You know, your flaws, your shortcomings, your great qualities.
Yeah, we get it.
You know? So
I see you. We see each other.
we do.
So, everyone, if you loved learning about Catherine and Modern Legend, if the people want to connect with you, where should
If
they
they
do
want
that?
to connect with me,
Mhm.
like on the internet.
How do you prefer being connected with?
I don't know. I didn't think this. I guess the internet.
The,
I feel like I should
plug
stop
your-
saying the internet for starters.
the World Wide Web?
The World Wide. Interesting. I'm not gonna be like, you handwrite me a letter.
Maybe you're open to being a pen
How do you feel about
pal.
pen pals?
I honestly, you seem too busy for that.
I actually low key have had a pen pal for a long time. She
No,
lives in
you have
Maryland. She's
not.
actually like it's a whole thing.
How many years?
Since I opened Modern, so 8
That's
years.
so cool.
Yeah, I'm like such a I'm so that kind of person. Anyways, the Instagram Modern Legend NC with the @ symbol in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think people just know that. I
And
don't have
it's
to say
the
that.
one with 16,000 followers. I did
Yeah.
check recently. Yeah.
Wow.
Good on you. Yeah.
And our website, which is like it's modern-legend.com.
Yeah,
Which
if
is
you're-
it's all on the Instagram. Instagram's the way to.
Right.
But
And
yeah, our full functioning website, everything we have is every record, everything. Yeah.
So if you are not in the Wilmington, North Carolina area, don't have any plans on going soon, yikes, go check out the website and
Yeah.
buy something on
It's
there.
beautiful and fun.
It
We
is.
update
It's
it every day.
it's really good. You've done
Thank
some
you.
really good stuff.
Thank
Like
you.
everyone just go check it out because you will be impressed. Thank you so much for making
Thank
the
you so
time.
much.
Spoiler alert, I will be traveling to Modern Legend, most likely in season 2, to do a profile on Catherine and her store. So stay tuned. Hello,
It'd
Mooney.
be so fun.
Thank you for joining us just in time
Hi,
for the wrap up.
Mooney. She said, "I'm here, girls."
She said, "Hey, did someone call? Do you want to come hang out with me and Auntie Catherine?" And shout out to the fellow cat ladies. We didn't even talk about
Yes.
yours. Real quick, plug them.
Yes.
We're gonna put pictures.
Plug
in.
them, Elsie, Elsie and Everett.
When I come to town next, I need to come meet them
You
immediately.
have to, and then I
Yeah.
have my dog too, Happy.
Right,
who's,
right.
my little pity princess.
Baby is being so sweet and lovey. Look, Mooney is so proud of her mother.
I know.
for
She's like,
helming a
"Mom,
season.
that was a really,
Do
that
you
was a
wanna
really
come
good
up
job."
here, honey? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Let Me Be Fronk. Again, I am your host and CEO of the show, Alyssa Fronk, and this is a bi-weekly talk show I host in my New York City apartment. Like I mentioned up top, season 1 is wrapping soon. This is one of our final episodes of the season. So if you've been along for the whole journey and ride, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support and giving my show a chance and all your encouraging words and feedback. It has really meant the world to me. And if you're new, I hope you liked what you saw and maybe you go watch some previous episodes. They are all at delight.com, but I'm biased. Go form your own opinions. I would like to open up the floor to feedback, comments, questions, responses from you, my beloved audience, because I really want to make this a show that people also feel invested in and feel like it's a good use of their time when you come to tune in, watch, or listen. If you have anything you'd like to share with me, you can send an email to letmebefronk@gmail.com. Please, I would love to hear your thoughts, opinions, all of the above. More to come, and I am very excited for the next episode that I'm not going to tell you a single thing about, but it's going to be really great. And again, thank you so much for being here. I'm rambling, so I'm going to let you all go. Have a good one. Bye.